Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this webinar, How Breville Innovates 4 Times Faster with Altium. Today, you are going to hear from leaders at Breville on how Altium improved their efficiency by 400%, enabling them to get their innovative products to market faster than ever before. Before I introduce Breville, I'd like to briefly introduce myself. My name is Naomi Hamels, and I am the Global Director of Marketing at Altium. I will also be your moderator today alongside our technical lead, Joe Beck. Many of you, if you are here today, have likely heard of Altium. Founded in 1985, we actually just celebrated our 35th year at the forefront of PCB design, with Altium Designer in its position as the most widely used PCB design software on the market. With its easy-to-use, powerful, and modern capabilities, Altium Designer users are able to design boards without limits, from simple to complex, from single PCB to multi-board systems, from low frequency to high speed, from rigid to flex, from any idea to realization. And every year, we focus on delivering technology that furthers our users' productivity and ability to innovate. Most recently, this includes the release of Altium Designer 21 and the launch of Altium 365, our platform, which you'll be hearing a lot more about today. Available with an Altium Designer subscription, Altium 365 enables seamless collaboration across the entire PCB design process, with a completely new way to share, visualize, and mark up PCB designs for all stakeholders involved. Altium 365 enables engineers and designers to work from anywhere and connect with anyone involved in the design process in an efficient and productive way. And it enables companies to get products to market faster and more cost efficiently. And it's what helped Breville innovate 4 times faster. So with that said, I'm thrilled to introduce our Breville speakers, Khan, the General Manager of Engineering, Tibor, the Principal Electronics Engineer, Jacob, their Mechatronics Engineer, and Zoe, an Electrical Engineer. And now I'll turn it over to Breville. Thank you.
Hi, thank you very much. And just before I start, I'd like to probably just introduce Breville for a quick introduction. Here at Breville, in our design facility in Sydney, we have about 200 engineers, industrial designers, product managers, chefs, scientists in the development group. We design, we develop, and we manufacture innovative products, and we sell these in over 50 countries around the world. We drive innovation through a really very deep understanding of our consumers' needs, their insights, and then empowering the development teams with the tools like Altium and the infrastructure to be able to deliver great products to market. So that was a quick intro for Breville. I'd like to probably just move on now into the key points on why we think that Altium provides us this empowerment to the teams. Firstly, we are developing within a consumer product environment, meaning that speed and flexibility is critical. And today, what we're feeling today in the market pressures, the volatility in today's supply chain, it becomes even more important. The second point we'd like to talk about is the seamless collaboration between the mechanical design and electronics design teams. We really want to bring these teams together far early in the development cycle, as well as, and most importantly, bringing these subsystems together with a higher level of maturity into the products, allowing us to bring learnings and reduce the number of unknowns whilst increasing confidence in our design sooner in the development cycle. The final point, I think it's about more the development of the use of standardized design files and using them to share in a consistent way across multiple contract manufacturers and seamlessly communicating our technical data. To speak more to this, I'd like to introduce you to our Principal Electronics Engineer, Tibor Hedgedis. So Tibor, over to you.
Thank you, Con. Hi, everyone. I'm purposely not saying good morning, good afternoon, because you guys are all over the globe now. My name is Tibor Hedgedis, and I'm Principal Electronics Engineer in Breville, working mainly on anything electronics that comes through Breville. So I would like to address some questions on how are we 4 times faster. And obviously we had to get to this problem from several fronts. Obviously we had to do initial investment at first purchasing Altium 365, and thanks to great people at Altium, we were actually made aware of many of the new features that Altium 365 had enabled us to do. And then we had to develop strong knowledge base, and that is internally in Breville. And I will touch on that a little bit more a few slides back when we talk about introduction or getting new people on board, onboarding new people. And we needed then to deploy Altium ecosystem within Breville. So that means that all libraries, templates, and project structure had to be harmonized. So just to put in some perspective, it took us about a couple of weeks to get on top of Altium 365 Pro, because it's just a seamless extension of what Altium had to offer before. It's just that things are done now much more efficiently, and it's much easier to use. There is also this phenomenal web-based browser that we'll also demonstrate a little later today. Full PCB design capability internally. These next 3 points are more of our housekeeping. Previously, Breville was was split across several departments and across several manufacturers, and there was always a mixture of stuff developed in-house and manufacturing, contract manufacturer were helping us develop things outside, just in terms of offloading some of our resources, but that caused also some problems. So we basically needed to get this system up and running in Breville. So we did that, of course, and that is part of our initial investment too. Now, Altium 365 Pro also allowed us access to components database in real time. The component database such as IHS is something that I believe Altium can tell you a bit more about it, but it is this database that is extremely powerful and gives you information in real time about the availability of the parts, the real time pricing, and so on. So it basically gets us more empowering when it comes to the actual electronics design. And finally, streamline process. So diagram that you've seen on introduction to Altium. So 365 allows all parties to come together into one place. So that's manufacturer, that's component libraries, and components manufacturer, distributors, and electronics design. Because you have it all in the same place, it really helps you to do turnaround at least 4 times faster. So to put it in perspective, for example, how we did things previously. We would talk to manufacturers, and regardless if we design or manufacturer design electronics parts for us, it all starts with schematic. Schematic gets done, and then it gets reviewed. In review, we have a couple of days, and it takes about a week to a couple of weeks, depends how complex schematic is. Then our review comments get passed on to manufacturer and via various channels, and we'll talk about it later on too. Now we were using WeChat, emails, messengers, Skypes, you name it, and messages get lost during this. Then manufacturers update schematic, we review it again, and then it proceeds to say. The whole process is very cumbersome and very easy to break. With Altium 365, we all work in the same place, so we can collaboratively work with manufacturers. So for example, we're using libraries that are specific to this particular manufacturer. So this particular manufacturer requires footprints to be done in a certain way because they like to with their reflow machine, they have particular setup, and it only works, this footprint works for them. So we accommodate that. So we attach, obviously, multiple footprint to this particular component. I understand this was all available previously. It's just that we're now doing it simultaneously in one place. So that is, I guess, the most powerful thing that we have done so far to allow us to go 4 times faster. That's it from my side, and I'll get into Jacob and Zoe to present more technical stuff.
Yeah. Let me just do the transition, and thank you very much, Tibor. I think you in a high level touched most of the benefits that our tool have. But and the other thing is I'm really grateful and to have I was the one that had the opportunity to present our solutions to Breville. We always had a really close, relationship. I mean, me and Tibor, we always worked together and try to improve his productivity, making things better, just like, Altium way of dealing with our customers. Now, we would like to call Jacob and Zoe. So we go to a bit of a lower level on the technical stuff, because everything that Tibor said here looks amazing. But, as an engineer, and I guess most of you also, we would like to see it, how it actually works. One of the things before I pass it on to Jacob, one point that Tibor brought was, this is a data management system. And whenever we hear data management, we think, oh my God, I'll have to plan ahead. This is a system that it will take us, months to get implemented. It's something that we'll have to learn how to do, we have to pretty much learn a new tool or how to use this new way to, manage all our projects, manage our component libraries. When in fact, the Altium 365 Pro that they have implemented only took them a few weeks. And I'd like to, if you could, Jacob, start sharing with us, how was the experience when, from the moment I gave you at Breville access to the workspace, how quickly were you able to, push your designs, start sharing your designs with the others, and taking some of the benefits of it right from the bat?
Thank you, Zhao. Before I get into that, I want to take you back a little bit further and just into some of the issues that we were facing. Tibor mentioned that one of the biggest problems was around communicating, particularly externally. We would have, he said, long email chains. We would be using WeChat, WhatsApp, applications like this, even internally communicating ideas about our design and getting feedback on that around using tools, Slack, taking screenshots, annotating on them. And over time, we would start to lose traceability of where revisions were up to. And just before we got onto the Altium 365 platform, we all experienced the 14 months ago of now having to work remotely as well. So that just added on an extra layer of challenges where we needed this clear, transparent communication to maintain efficiency within our design work. So what I've got on the slide here, we can see is an example prototype of a board that we've developed for this coffee machine here. Now, it is just a prototype board, but it's going to show some of the capabilities of Altium 365 and how we have solved a lot of these problems, particularly around communication, getting feedback on designs, and making sure we're not disconnected from the project and are maintained with the latest revision. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to share with you an example of this project, as we can see from the Altium 365 web viewer. So this is something not requiring Altium Designer. This is completely viewed within a web browser. It can be done on a laptop, PC, phone, tablet, anything that supports a browser interface, which has been a great way, particularly for those who aren't technically proficient with Altium or don't have it installed, or we don't have any licenses or viewer licenses for them, both internally and externally. They can access this design, review it, and see pretty much all the capability that you need to be able to review the design, from the PCB layout, the schematic, even a 3D model of the design as well. and our bill of materials. So with the design itself, we're working with lots of people and we want to make sure we're maintained with this latest revision. Traditionally, you might have, say, this set up on your own Git hosted platforms such as Bitbucket or GitHub, or use the files within a shared drive, or perhaps just emailing the files themselves. So Altium 365 has now supported the platform to integrate Git within it, and we can see a full history of the project, points where the project was released, and we have that full traceability of where we are up to within the project itself. If someone then does want to perhaps review that project, again, this is all through that web browser interface. And so I'll show you, for example, let's say Tibor or Zoe has a comment on one of these components here. Or actually, I have a question perhaps for Tibor about this component, right? Where we have a push button here for our controller. And I'm not sure, should we be using through-hole components or should I use a surface mount component perhaps? So I can place a comment. I can click on the object here. I can ask Tibor the question. It should come up. He's in our workspace. There he is. And then say, hey, should we be using through-hole technology or surface mount? Tibor can then get a notification of that, and I'll let Tibor explain what he's seeing now.
Yes, so I'm just opening the project. What had happened at this point is email has gone out, excuse me, and when I open design, when I click on that link, regardless which device I'm using, I'll be able to see that design and attend to this or see these messages. So I can see that message that was posted to me, and it says, should we be using through-hole or SMT? So so imagine a situation when we left the factory and there was this last minute before we hit button for production, and there is this last thing that we need to answer to manufacturer, and we said just through-hole is fine. So hit reply. That should be, Jacob should be able to visit to see that straight away.
Yeah, so just like that, it's just like a real-time communication way. And this is exactly the same in Altium Designer itself. So through the web viewer, you can see the comments, or through Altium Designer software, the comments are shown exactly the same way and in that real time as well. No need to refresh pages, anything like that. So this has eliminated the need for using these various tools that either internally or externally, such as Slack, email, or other communication methods, that we can now just communicate information about the design.
You know, what I really like about this feature is that Tibor, or a manager, engineer manager, that only wants to review a project and not, you know, he's not doing any work on the project other than reviewing, giving him his feedback. He doesn't need to have Altium Designer installed in his computer. He doesn't need to consume, or he doesn't need an Altium Designer license, not even a viewer license. And as Tibor said, he can open this from any device. He can be at home. He can use a tablet. He can even use his phone just to add a comment and reply as quick as possible. You know, it might be something that is holding on the project. You know, Jacob's working on it, and then Tibor, outside the company, and he needs that question answered as quick as possible. He can do it from anywhere. And everything stays within the project, right? This is the other point that Tibor brought in. You can use Slack, you can use WhatsApp, you can use, text messages, but everything is outside the project. And you might get confused. You don't want to look elsewhere other than where your project and every single thing related to the project is. So I'm a big fan of this feature too. And thanks for sharing, Jacob.
That's right.
Great.
And it's...
I add one more thing, Jacob. Yeah, I know that you haven't finished, but version control and always reviewing the latest version of. Can you present a little bit about that?
Yeah,
so for example,
let me share that project again.
Yeah.
Go on, Tibor.
I think it's a good point. I think it's a good point, Tibor. The other thing is that, from what I know, when you had the access to Altium 365 Pro, how much time did you take to configure the version control, right? It was just there. You didn't have to set up anything, right?
Correct.
Instead of having a repository folder on a network drive, you didn't have to spend any time with that. I'll leave it with you, Jacob. Great.
So like we saw before, this version control, you don't need to be an expert in Git or anything like that on how to use it. It's all integrated within Altium Designer itself. Git is the platform that it uses, but it's very seamless. It's very much about saving to the server, pulling from the server again, and even conflicts are handled quite well in that you just get a simple message. Would you prefer to use the server version or your own version, should you come to a point where there does happen to be some form of conflict within the particular file itself. So it is quite seamless in that sense. And while it may take a little bit to sort of get used to if you haven't used version control before in the past, it does work quite well, and it does have this transparency, and you can see exactly where you're up to. You can take back a snapshot of a particular revision, for example, if you want, to then review that as well, or integrate elements of that back into an initial design also.
The real power of that, I'm sure every one of us experienced that wrong version PCB has been manufactured, and that set you at least a month back. With this version control, we know exactly what is being produced. And so there is absolutely no doubt, if I send this version or that version, I just changed in the last minute this point, but we released it in. So at the time when manufacturer receives the files and he receives it in form of well-defined Gerber files and all the manufacturing files, which we'll talk about too, but it's all set for manufacturing. So no more wrong version of boards being produced.
Yeah. So on that note of manufacturing, what we've just sort of talked about there was around feedback on the design itself, whether that perhaps was with the manufacturer or with team internally or externally. But now let's say we're going to a manufacturer point of view where they're there for fabrication. Now at times, it might make sense to share the design files with them, but sometimes you might have, say, really sensitive IP on that and you just want to share the fabrication files. And I know, at least from my experience in the past, it has sometimes been a bit of a process to be able to share those manufacturing files, the Gerber files, drill files, assembly files, and things like that, developing a platform for that, making sure you don't miss anything, and making sure that they do have the correct revision. Like Tibor said, there's been times in the past where we would expect something, but then we get something back that has an element of it that's from a previous revision, which is never that great. And like you said, sets us back in time. So what Altium 365 offer as well is this communication with the manufacturer, in that we can share elements of the project that are just the fabrication files and the assembly files, and they do still have the same ability to review those and provide comments in a similar way. So I'll share the project once again. And if I go into this manufacturing section here, so as you saw in the history tab, we have 2 project releases. So these releases here then get pushed into this manufacturing point. And how this release was made is using the project releaser tool within Altium Designer itself. So you may or may not have used outjob files, or you may have just generated the Gerber files directly through an export by setting up a project template. And these templates can then also be stored within 365 itself to be used across your team. by setting up this template with appropriate out job files, and then that can be combined with the project releaser, where it will run through a check of your project, it will do your design rule check, it will make sure you have the latest revision of the project on your device, and it will compile a release and then publish that here, where you then have the option to send that release to the manufacturer. And you can choose, do you want to send perhaps the source files, the fabrication, assembly files, and you're not limited to this. This checkboxes is how it's set up from within your template. So we send that to the manufacturer, and these are the packages that have been sent. So you can see, for example, here where I've perhaps sent it to more people, I've only sent the fabrication file and the assembly file, whereas this one here, I've sent all three files, the source files, the fabrication, the PCB files as well. So I'll share with you what one of these outputs looks like. Okay, you should be able to see that. So the manufacturer will then open up this link here. And what we can see is a bit of a summary, an overview of what the package looks like. It has minimum trace width, maximum trace width, other properties about the design itself, which is useful for the manufacturer to help determine cost as well as manufacturing capability. And then they have the fabrication file itself, which is all of these, the Gerber layers as output. They can then review and from there comment on in a similar way to before. They could place a comment, say, hey, you need to make sure that your gap between the solder mask clearance and the traces is a certain distance, for example, or something along those lines. So that there is a very powerful tool and something we've been using with some projects that we've been doing to our manufacturers as well.
Yeah, let me add something here also that kind of a comment. This has really worked well with our customers. The other thing that the files, if you could just open up Altium Design and show them the project releaser so I can tell the audience how the files get there. If not, I can also do it, but it should, give me 1 moment. Yeah. So the way, while Jacob is working to show us how it looks like in Altium Designer, this is a very, very automated way that Altium Designer has to generate this whole manufacturing package in one go with one single click, right? And it's not like it's going to generate the outputs without checking the project. It actually goes over ERC on your schematics. It goes over DRC on your PCB. And only if all the checks passed and there are no violations, only after that, the package gets generated. Right? So that's pretty much how these files get then pushed once it passed all the violation checks, and the files get released to the workspace. And now you have all the outputs very organized in the workspace. Instead of downloading them, instead of emailing them to your manufacturer, you will just simply click send to manufacturer, and whatever package you want gets pushed to the manufacturer. With the traceability, as Tibor mentioned, when did you send that revision? What exact revision you sent to manufacturer? And you have that point or that way to communicate between, with your manufacturer and assembly house bidirectionally, right? You're going to be typing comments, and they might get back to you, informing you of, or preventing delays, or making you aware of possible delays, such as we have not received this part yet. Do you have an ETA for those connectors to get delivered to us so we can start assembly? So, beforehand, before it actually happens, what's the current state of your manufacturing, your board being manufactured, right? So that's essentially what we're trying to do. We're trying to connect not only your engineers, not only third-party designers, clients, but also connecting you with the manufacturers, so you have a way to communicate with between each other. Right. So this is Jacob.
So
Go on.
Yeah, sorry, Joe. I would like to just add that one form or the other, many of these features already existed in Altium before. What is significant about 365, that this now becomes a feature which is very easy to learn. You just start using it. It's like none of us learn how to use browser, internet browser, for example. We all know how to use it. It is very similar. So whoever is familiar already with Altium, it is very easy to pick up. But now it's all organized. So all these features, we could have done tests 5 years ago. But it will require significant effort on any company's side to create this structure, project structure, to make all of these file management system and so on. It's now all done within Altium. It's there. You're working with that. It's just setting that up. It's just, once-off effort and you're done.
Cool. Jacob, do you want to add something else, or you want to?
Well, I think so. Just from that, just to sort of recap that process there, once that project has been released through that project releaser tool and shared with the manufacturer, they have the ability to comment, review on that. We can then make changes to that, release again as necessary, or then contact them and confirm that, yes, this is ready to go. We can put this into production. We can start the assembly process of this. They can then also give feedback on not only aspects about the design itself, but perhaps about their process, right? They might not have a component in stock, and then they contact us and say, through the commenting there, is like, this component hasn't arrived yet. Can you check with the supplier? Or they might suggest an alternative component as well. So there's a whole range of different uses for this this platform to communicate with the manufacturer, and it just consolidates it into that one process. There's always that history, that traceability, even comments that have been resolved are still there as well to look back on in the past, to look back on if necessary, and it just helps optimize that entire process.
Awesome. And Zoe, I think you have something to share with us too.
Thank you, Joe. So another convenient features we've experienced with Altium 365 is it allows you to connect and access various informations directly from electronic distributors. And it has been saving our time of research and effectively evolving Breville to a mature stage of electronics development. So this is what happened. Before having Altium 365, in terms of designing the components, we were quite passive and strongly rely on our PCB manufacturers to select the parts to their own preference. However, some component selections might not be the best practice for our application sometimes. So some parts might be over-spec and some are under-spec. So in other words, we lack of information and lost some controls of the electronics design. Now it's different. The components in the Breville library are not isolated to the real world anymore, and they can be linked to markets and electronic distributors, such as DigitKey, RS components, and Melza through Altium 365 with particular part numbers, as you can see here. So this is a build we get in the active build of material. Once we have the design components in the schematic ready, then all the information will be gathered and be transparent to you, including the component stock availability, pricing, and also IHS component lifecycle state. So all of these will become transparent in there, and which has effectively shortened our component selection process, and it was a great benefit we gained throughout the project development stage. With this powerful tool, we've been able to build Breville's infrastructure of PCB development, such as define and manage component life cycles in our own ways. For instance, you might be able to see in the screenshots as well under component status. And we are able to separate stages into draft, prototype, production, and obsolete. Depends on whether components have been verified with prototypes or actual Breville products. Engineers are guaranteed to use these approved components from the library with zero or low risks. So they just drag and use it. So it's very convenient now.
Awesome. I'd like to add something here that it's kind of a story that I have Tibor shared with me a while ago. I remember that Tibor was working on one of their products, and he just mentioned to me that manufacturer was the one picking the part suppliers, and he actually once had, I don't know how often it happened, but he told me once that he needed an LCD, and he let the manufacturer choose the LCD supplier. Ended up being a low quality and not a quality that Breville products would be under their standards. So they would have some project delays due to not using components that were lower standards. And now that they are actually managing the whole component library is choosing exactly what suppliers they want to pick from, also managing through life cycle. So they know exactly, we have used this component before, we have used this supplier before, and we are happy with the quality of this part we can use for any future design. They have a really strict quality control over there that now they have complete control. It just makes things right the first time. You want to share something here, Tibor, too?
Yes. I remember that cake. Joe and I go way back. But the case that Joe was talking about is about 5 to 10 years back. Chinese market was really volatile. So we would have cases that that particular LCD was just one of the cases, but stuff like passives, like resistors, capacitors, even some semiconductors were just a knockoff. Now with this direct contact with component manufacturers, we are able to actually assign manufacturer stock to us. And so every time when we go into production, we know how many parts were ordered because we can match that to how many products we have ordered. So the whole thing become way more controlled. And so right now we're in full control. Now that when we see, we usually discover these low quality components due to our stringent live test, but it takes time. Why would we risk project delays to fail the live test only to then go back and find the root cause that leads down to that particular component? This way we know that this component, as Joe said, we use many times, and we know how it is fits into our design, so it's not going to fail. So we have a high probability of failing the live test and all our strict quality control. Which let's move on to onboarding. Now, I touched the base before about onboards, and one of the early discussion I had with Joe was what's the best way to introduce people to Breville system. Now, you can see this is the Breville Electronics department. We've got Quant Engineering Manager. We've got Kelvin, who is head of electronics, and then we have engineers under Kelvin that work in electronics. Every single one of these, of course, is proficient user of Altium, but what was different is that each of these people had their own way to use Altium, simply because Altium was a very configurable tool, and everyone adjusted their software to their own needs. We were using different components. Each engineer will have their preference of using their components. Then it also gets with manufacturer, and manufacturer also use their own components. It was working at the time, but it was obviously that we needed to standardize something in order for us to get fast and respond to these market needs. So when I was talking to João, I was asking what is the best way to do it, and that's when 365 came about. Joe said, how about, would you like to try this 365? Like anything new, by default, we're so busy. Anything new, we just, no, we're just fine. We're just fine. Can we just, and so Joe said, how about, here we go, let's try it. Let's see how we go. I will be there to help you out. And fair enough, after very few sessions, we were up and running. So, of course, with Jacob and Zoe first, but then we're deploying that across all the Breville. And in the meantime, we set up all systems and templates that we wanted and how we wanted. And we educated manufacturers how to use and how to collaborate with us. And we're in the early stages still, and there is still a learning curve, but I can honestly say that we over the hump. So it is just ironing out some creases, and that's about it. So as I said before, there was no structured process. All the templates were all over the place, and there was no standardized or harmonized system. There was not a single place. With Altium, it kind of it was very, very easy for people to get onto board because you're there. You are using Altium. You should just use it the way we suggest you to use, and you're up and running. We set up Confluence page with instructions, so every new engineer, when he comes on board, gets introduced to everything that we are doing, and of course libraries. So unlike before, I need this component, how are we going to do that? It is well defined. So we use so 365 Pro, for example, gives you the component templates. So in component templates, which is also configurable and configured to our Breville, you just use template. If there is component that you don't have in our libraries, you don't find in our libraries, use these templates. With a few clicks, you're up and running. We do insist on 3D components as well, because that helps us with overall system design, because we can push that to MCAD for we're using Autodesk. Sorry, it's on the tip of my tongue. It's SolidWorks, correct? Yeah, SolidWorks is dominant package, 3D package in Breville. We do use Inventor and NX as well, but with SolidWorks we have seamless pushing back and forth our 3D designs and checking for collisions, that kind of stuff. So this is the last piece of the puzzle that really explains and summarizes how we have achieved this 4 times faster. So we really started doing this just before we started talking about this new system before Christmas. Then obviously January was almost out with all the holidays and on. But we're in May now and we are set to go. So almost everything is in place right now. So that's how long it took us.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tibor. Yeah, I think you left me with nothing to say. I think, our partnership has worked really well. And Breville being a company that is constantly growing, this onboarding documentation that you guys are creating, it just makes sense. And we're happy that Altium 365 Pro is able to help you and guide, trying to enforce new people or new hires to follow the Breville standards, right? creating new projects the same way as all the other engineers do, creating new components the same way, working, just like they were there before or for quite some time. I think now it's the time when I'd like to share with everyone a simple design from Breville, and I'm sharing it with everyone here that wants to check how the online viewer works. This is a viewer with people completely outside. You're not getting into the commenting features, but I'm going to just demonstrate how far you can go, not only for, companies, but also students. This is a really nice way for you guys to share designs with with your professor, sharing your schematics, your PCB, and all the information within the project with a simple link. So I'm going to just push it to the Q&A for you guys, and you probably will be able to see it. Sammy, can you push that? Have you pushed the link for them? Okay, cool. They already have access to it. Let me just open it up from my side. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I don't know. It just froze my screen here for a while. Yeah, no, all good. Let me just open up the design here from my side, and I'm gonna try to share my screen with everyone. 1 second. There you go. And screen share, this one, and here we go. All right, so I guess you guys can see it, right? Just a confirmation here.
No.
No?
Oh, maybe.
Yes?
Yes, it's coming. It's coming now, yes.
Okay, cool. So this is a schematic design. This is the whole PCB design that they're sharing with everyone. You will have access to the schematic, and it's interactive. You can actually get the components. If you click over a component, get all the component information. If you click over a net, you also get the net information, what layer that net is on the board. And not only that, you can cross probe. So this is the component D12. You can cross probe to your PCB, and it will just highlight on the PCB exactly where the component is. From the 2D PCB, you can switch to the 3D. And now you have that capability of looking at the 3D view, which is super, super quick. Look how nice this is. If you want to, impress your customers, impress your professor with your design. A lot of people have been using the viewer to share with the embedded designers, right? Because they are not always or not often sharing comments, but what they do is they need to know the pinout of the signals, right? So let's say this is signal and net R1_1 because it doesn't have the net label. But let's say I want to use find out where net1 R1_1 is. I can simply use that magnifier and type in net R1_1, click over it, and you highlight across the whole design where that net is, where that signal coming from a microcontroller, and then he can also cross probe it to the PCB, as I said before, and cross probe it to the 3D as well. So this is super, super powerful, super quick. And with the link, this is a 48 hours link. You can share a design with anyone you want. Okay, this does not require any sign-in. this is a public link. If you want to keep your design safe and not sharing a public link, you can also share specifically to someone's email, and they'll have to use their Altium Live to access it. If they don't have Altium Live, doesn't cost any more. They can just sign in for an Altium Live. They'll have a password. You're going to use their email and password, and only them with their email and password can access the design. Okay? Let me go back to the presentation. Let me stop sharing it. And I think, Naomi, you have a few words to say?
Yes. Thank you so much, Joe. All our speakers with Breville. That was awesome. And thank you to all of you for joining today. We do have time left for Q&A, and we don't have a hard stop. So we can go over, and we do see a lot of questions here. So we'll get to those. But I just wanted to remind everyone of the exciting raffle that you probably all are aware of for one of the most desired Breville products, the Barista Express. So we will be announcing the winner. So someone that was here live today will be one of the winners, and we will announce it in a follow-up email that will go out tomorrow. So please be on the lookout for that. Also, I just want to let everyone know that, you know, to make it easier than ever to really get started with Altium, we actually are extending a special promotion to the attendees of this webinar. So that will also be included in the follow-up email. So please be on the lookout. Okay, so now I'd like to open it up for live Q&A.
Cool. Let me try to drive a few of them here, because some of them
Great.
I can answer, and if is there any question to Breville, I'll just ask them to help me answering the questions. I see one question here about how does this work with multi-layer schematics or one circuit used many times in one design. We have a name for that in Altium Designer, which is multi-channel design, right? You have multiple instances of the same schematic within one PCB design. It works the same way, so this would be a feature of Altium Designer. If you're sharing with anyone, they will be able to see it through the online viewer. They will be able to see one copy of it, but you'll be able to cross-probe to every single instance on the PCB as well. Okay, if you type in the net name for a specific channel, you will cross-probe to that specific channel. Let me see another one here. So that manufactured. This is a question that I can answer, and Tibor and his team can also help me if they want to. How do you manage components, example capacitors, that the manufacturer changes the physical dimensions from one production to the next? Do you want to say in your case, yes, how you would? Okay, cool.
Actually, sure, I touched that already. So the way we manage that is, especially for the passives, we attach multiple footprints to our schematic component. So we've got one schematic component that we like, that is drawn from ICC database. So capacitor will have certain representation, and we use that capacitor all over passive capacitor. But then, depending on that particular component, we attach several footprints. That's one way. The other way that we also use is going down to specific component. We'll have specific part numbers, and that part numbers will actually, when we choose it, we know if it is 0402, is it 0603, and then we know the characteristics of that particular component, and we use that particular component. So it goes both ways. Sometimes we start particular part numbers for specific parts that we would like to use. Sometimes we assign the alternative parts that can be used, and sometimes we just insist in this single particular part.
All right. I think there's a great question here as well for you, Tibor. I like this one. Am I correct to say that Breville often makes schematic design in-house and outsource the PCB layout?
This is trade secret. So we do outsource some of the PCB design, but that's purely and only to offload from ours. So when we get too busy with so many products coming down to the pipeline, we have specific PCB, and that's all they do. So PCB manufacturers, they help us with the layout, and it is only occasionally that we do that. Most of the time we design our PCBs in-house, and we are actually trying to get on top of every single product to be designed in-house. Altium 365 is going to help us there, of course.
Cool. Let me look at another one. I think there's one that I can answer here as well. During the PCB layout design process, when you get to a point in which you want to try something, but you're uncertain if you might keep it, would you save the design to an alternate name if you decide to keep what you tried and save back to the original design name? I think there are different approaches to this. The way I would handle it, there is a way where you can, when you're connected to Altium 365, you can duplicate a project. And if I'm going different ways from the same project, I would just duplicate it and then make whatever changes I want there. If I'm happy with those changes, I'll keep that version that I created or that fork that I created with the one that I like the changes. If not, I just go back to the other copy I have. I don't know if Tibor, how you guys do this, if you want to go different ways, or if you want to test something out in a design, if you actually name it, use an alternate name.
So we do, of course, do test it. We go through prototype stage, and there is several iterations of these prototyping stages, but we tested with particular manufacturers. So when I say manufacturers, so these are people that choose PCB and do pick and place, and they usually are outsourced by our product manufacturers or have it in-house. But yeah, so we through the prototyping stage, we have several rounds of prototyping that all gets ironed out. If there is any significant that comes out of that, we note it and we attach it to either component or either to specific design, and there is plenty of space where we can keep all these notes.
Good. Now, I have another question here that it's for you guys. People are interested in your the way you guys design and document stuff. There's one here. There's someone here asking, how is formal sign-off achieved after review? Is it just recommitted as checked by the reviewer? Can you guys answer this question?
Yes, of course. The final review is either down to me or some other senior people. And it depends on per project. So it depends which manufacturer we're working. But in essence, one of the senior people takes full responsibility of checking everything and approving this particular. So this happened before the project release. So before we package it and send it to manufacturer, we all review. Sometimes we do review it as a panel. If it is complex PCB that has multiple aspects to be reviewed, we just simply get into room and just discuss design face to face and check all the aspects and share the knowledge, of course. But once it's reviewed and been approved, then we release it formally within Altium, and then that package gets into our manufacturer for production.
Cool. Thank you, Tibor. Can you access previous commits from the web? Have you tried this, Jacob?
Previous commits from the web. So from that history panel that we saw, I might share that again. Let me bring it up. Okay. So opening up this project here from the web, we can see these different revisions here. Now, this isn't something that I have actually tried, so let's work through it. Together, looks like what we can do. We have two options for different commits. We can clone or we can download a snapshot. I'm going to guess downloading a snapshot is going to download a zip package for me that I can then open up in Altium Designer. If I was to hit clone, it looks like it's going to clone the project. And correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, I'm going to clone the project from that commit into my workspace. So
exactly.
I haven't done this, so let's see what happens. Let's hit clone. Okay. And if I go back to my projects, there we go. So this here was the original project, and now I have from that commit, it opened in a new tab so you can't see it. But yeah, that there opened that project there in a new tab from that commit. So,
and
yes, that's...
Yeah. Thank you, Jacob. And this is one of the upcoming features. There are two things coming from the Altium 365 side. One is the comparison between revisions right in the web view, okay? And that's the whole project comparison. You just choose compare two revisions, and then you will graphically show the differences between them. We'll highlight what objects are different from one to the other. And the other thing that it's coming out very, very soon is the Gerber file comparison. So you would release all the manufacturing package, and you will be able to compare two different revisions of the Gerber files. Again, highlighting all the differences, exactly where there are differences between those two Gerber files. Okay, and this is the nicest thing about, one of the nicest thing about 365 and 365 Pro is that you don't have to update the software. The update happens automatically. You will constantly be getting new features, right? Every second weekend, updates get pushed to the workspace, and you automatically start seeing them. And they get also populated on our website with the documentation. Let me look into another question here. We're getting a lot of questions. Naomi, you call me if we're going too far.
I'll call you. I think we still have a lot of people on, so let's keep answering.
Yeah, we have a bunch of questions.
I know.
Let me just go see a few.
And there's some we're answering directly too that are shorter answers.
Okay, so there's a question here. I don't think it's much related with Altium Designer, but it's for Breville. I think, you know, if you guys want to answer this, are the connecting cables custom designed also?
Of course, every single product has this custom cable design, depending on what we are connecting to where. So we are trying to create a family of products where we reuse electronics that's been designed previously, and by reusing components that's what we are trying to build and to even speed us more. But when it comes to cables, yeah, absolutely. All the cables are new. We usually offload that to product manufacturer. We work with them because there are sometimes specifics where we want to route cables, and we specify the wires that need to be used, materials, their standards that we need to adhere to, depending on the temperature rise and so on. But yeah, they're all custom cables.
Okay. I have another question here for you to answer, Tibor, again. Part of it, I want to answer myself. This is, do you use only the active BOM for knowing the stock of components, or you have an alternative resource? Just before Tibor answers this question, you can look elsewhere. I mean, as an engineer, you try to get as much information as you want from different sources, right? It's like going to a doctor and another doctor to have a second opinion, right? But just so you guys know, what with Altium 365 Pro, they have access to the IHS data, right? IHS, it's pretty much, one of the biggest component database companies that have all those life cycle informations and also alternative part options, just to guarantee design continuity. So they not only have this real-time information coming from IHS, but also they have access to alternative components if any of the components that they are using is out of stock, it became obsolete and stuff like that. So, Tibor, do you guys double check somewhere else?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So when I say that Altium is speeding us up, this is during design stage, during the prototyping stage, and these cycles of prototyping. What we do, we get to very high confidence in pricing the PCB, which then gets built into final BOM of the product, and all this information are just used as a reference. When we get to the end, just before releasing it to the mass production, sometimes suppliers have better channels to get their components, but most of the time we get in touch directly with components, which is tip for Altium. I hope now that you can get us like the same way as you get us through IHS. Maybe you can get us to direct to manufacture like ST, TI, and IR and other semiconductor manufacturer at first, but then also passives too. But that's what we do. We have direct contact with ST, we have direct contact with passive components manufacturer, and we have indirect contact still through suppliers, through some other parts like ON, but we're not using as many parts from ON. So that's how we do it. Just using as a reference, we have a really good idea about the life cycle of the parts that we're using. So we, from IHS, find out whether these parts are recommended for new designs, and if they're not, we of course avoid it. And then after we finalize design, then we go into details and approve all the parts.
Cool. Yeah, I don't know if we have time, but another question for you, Tibor. How do you handle fault coverage of the entire board? I'm
not sure that, because fault coverage can be on so many levels.
No, yeah.
If they're referring to when we produce the board and something does not work. That does not happen often because we've got history of design and why we do things. And as I said, we reuse circuits that are working, and any new circuits that are added, we can focus on them fairly easily. Of course, with the CAD design, we rely heavily on Altium DRC. We just set it up properly, and that takes care of all the clearances that we need to do, and so on. This is all set up with templates that we're using. So when you start new design, new project, there is blank schematic and blank PCB for you with all rules set up for you. You just keep doing. But yeah, fault finding is always, sometimes PCB does not get properly manufactured or etched, or things that we have shorts where we don't expect it to be shorts. We inspected, of course, in Breville, and all these are ironed out well before we get even close to manufacturing.
Thank you, Tibor. Let me look into more here. You're muted, Naomi.
Thank you. I would say maybe one more, and then those that weren't answered, we will follow up directly.
Okay, let me look for one here.
Sound good?
Yep.
Okay. And just while you're doing that, as a reminder, I mean, this recording will be shared in the email, in the follow-up tomorrow. So you'll have access to the presentation and all the Q&A.
There is one question here, I think, that from someone that might not have the Altium 365 at the moment, and it's a bit confused with the Altium library. So can I add a non-existing component into the Altium library, and how? You cannot add a component to the library that we manage, but if you start managing your own library with Altium 365, you can definitely add new components. If this is your question, if you need more information about Altium 365, now you go into our website, you'll see a lot of information. Just look for Altium 365, and there are a lot of technical videos and documentation on how to create new components with Altium 365 connected to Altium Designer with step-by-step. You can reach out to us as well. You can reach out to me if you want to. I can make myself available. I think that's it, Naomi. There are more questions coming, but I think we just don't have enough time now.
Great. So we'll follow up directly on those questions. And again, thank you so much to the Breville team, Zhao, and to everyone who attended today. So again, look out for the email tomorrow with the raffle winner, the promotion, and the recording.